on to absolutely huge news, and the ramifications of this are crazy because it throws selection for New South Wales in complete disarray. But also, let's say New South Wales go on to win with the new halves pairing, it throws the plan that's been in place for the last 5 years into complete disarray as well. And all of a sudden, let's say, New South Wales, the underdogs at the moment, go to Suncorp, win Game 3, they win the series. Going into next year's series, it's no longer a sure thing that Cleary gets it. Now, I think right now, before a ball's been kicked, I think Cleary is your man for the next 5 years, but we'll get into that. But what an unbelievably unfortunate incident for New South Wales. And also Cleary, this next game was such an opportunity for him, such an opportunity. This has got folklore written all over it. I agree with Timmy message as well when it happened. When I looked at it and it happened, and I know it's hindsight, hero, I get it, but it's like, sometimes I wish the key playmakers just wouldn't back up after Origin, especially Nathan Cleary. I'm pretty sure he ran for the most Ks of any player on the Origin field. And so I look at that and I go, maybe. But I know it's hindsight if he gets through the game.
Campy, I don't think it is hindsight, hero, because I know we've all been in agreement with it, but I've gone pretty heavy on it in the past. I just don't understand, with how long the season is these days. So it's literally 27 rounds. The rep players playing 3 extra Origin games. World Cup end of last year. Particularly when it's a team like Penrith or the South Sydney Rabbitohs, who we know they're probably going to be top 4. They'll be playing finals footy. They're top of the table. They don't need to back them up. I've never understood it. And we saw on the weekend, Jai Arrow gone. I know he only played sort of a bit more limited minutes in Origin, but we lose Cam Murray, who I saw a report that he had a little groin niggle coming out of Wednesday night, backed up anyway. Gone lasted about 30 minutes. Nathan Cleary goes, who was dealing with a groin injury a month ago. He wasn't even kicking goals, plays Origin, and then 4 days later backs up. And so I don't think it is hindsight here. I don't know why there's this need for them to. We see the Gold Coast Titans. They played Dave Fafita 30 minutes. Sure, they didn't get the win, but I found that good coaching. We need him for the rest of the year. We can't afford him to get injured. So it really angers me.
I would have been okay, and I know, again, hindsight because we end up getting the win. I would have been okay if Haas, Carrigan, those boys rested, and we lost, because they're so important.
And it's nearly impossible to fault Ivan Cleary's coaching in recent years. He's been near perfect, but he always backs players up, and going into the last couple of rounds of the season where you think they'd had the minor premiership sewn up and had opportunity to rest him, and there are games where he hadn't rested key players. Isaiah played 80 minutes in Origin, 4 days later backs up for the Panthers and plays 80 minutes again. Do you really need to do that?
Yeah, it's such a tough line. When you've been in an NRL squad, you've got to push that boundary as far as you can push it of toughness. As soon as it's like the gymnasts where they walk along those, whatever it is, the trapeze or whatever it is, like a balancing act between pushing toughness as hard as you can push it, because you need 30 men or women almost just animalistic tough, tough as anything. I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the injuries that people play with. But it's finding that balance between professional sports, their bodies need to be rested. And so, if you say, we just rest our Origin players, then there might be this kind of message of, a real Origin player is an Origin player that plays after he plays on Wednesday, he plays on the weekend for his team. So I personally would always rest my key players especially if I'm a top 8 side not even a top 8, if I'm a side that I know is probably going to be there and it would take us completely falling off a cliff, I would rest my key Origin players, especially if they're veterans. Rookies are a little bit different, I think, because they haven't got as much miles in their legs. For example, I'm okay with Reece Walsh backing up because he's in his 2nd or 3rd year. He hasn't got as much miles in his legs. But guys that have been around for ages, I probably wouldn't play.
It's tough. I guess it's a hard balance for Ivan to find, because I would imagine that I pretty much know every one of those Panthers boys, they wanted to back
100%.
They take so much pride.
Yeah, it's not
in
knocking
going
the players.
Yeah,
it's more a coaching decision. Of course, the players want to back up.
Yeah, but you've got to thankfully Nate's injury is only 5 or 6 weeks. But if it was worse than that, that leaves Penrith's season in tatters.
Well, I mean, the competition's so tight, and look, they'll stay in the 8, but the competition is so tight. That 5 to 6 weeks could cost him a top 4 spot.
It could. It legitimately could.
And sorry, Gary.
Well, and also, if not that, it could cost them being able to rest Nath and other guys for the last week or two, like you ideally want to do.
And So Jack Cogger probably next in line in the halves, came off the bench on the weekend, we think.
Yeah, probably.
Whoever's next in
Yeah.
line. Wouldn't you just see it's like a game at home in Penrith against the Dragons, a game that even if they rested, say, Cleary or a couple there, you'd back them to get the job done. If Cleary does go down at the end of the year, you think it's a great opportunity to get some games and some time in the leagues of Jack Cogger or whoever is next in line in the halves.
To make it even more bizarre, Isaiah Yeo, as you said, played 80 minutes in Origin, played 80 minutes the other night. They played Sonny Luke in reserve grade. So even if they wanted to play Isaiah Yeo for less minutes, you would assume Mitch Kenny would go to 13. Well, they obviously went in with a plan just to play Isaiah Yeo.
I can see it from the perspective, the Panthers coaching staff, of almost when you lose an Origin game, everyone's down in the dumps. You just want to get back out in the footy field and get that confidence back. Whereas sometimes, like let's say they rested them, that's a whole 10 days of thinking about that loss, and so they're just in their head. So I get what you're saying. I understand in regards to like just rest the Origin players, but having been in squads and how far you've kind of pushed that boundary between toughness and smartness, I can understand why the Panthers would, like why, the Rabbitohs and Panthers and even Broncos, the players backed up. But yeah, Jesus, a risk, especially considering he had the groin issue earlier in the year. It is hindsight to a degree. If he had got through the match fine, we wouldn't even be talking about it.
But like, there were 3. So Arrow was ankle, I believe. So like the Murray and Cleary were both soft tissue injuries.
If Murray actually did have a niggle coming out of Wednesday and he still played, I do think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think it's madness.
Yeah,
regardless.
but it's, as I said, it's a hard balance as a coach. You've got this relationship with the players. You don't want to quell the competitor in them and say, nah, you're not playing. Even if you want to play, you're not playing. It's a hard balance. I don't know what the right answer is. I really don't.
Because at the same time, I sit there and I watch Val Holmes and I go, fuck, what a good knock that is.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know they're in a different situation.
Like even Munster played.
Yeah.
Like these guys. So it seems like a competition-wide, I guess, decision.
I have a question, and I've thought this forever. Why I don't understand like any downside in breaking up the comp into 2, like the EPL do, like they have an international break, have Origin for 3 weeks, so then the TVs don't get screwed around because there's no like games where the Origin stars don't play. You just push the season back to 2 weeks, started a bit earlier, and then you can just do outside of Origin, you can just do like other international stuff throughout that three-week period. I see zero downside in that. And then you don't have to worry about this because now from round 11 to around 17 or 18, club footy is diluted because there's Origin affected. It's Origin affected in one way or another. So I've never understood why they don't just make that an Origin period.
I've always said the best solution for eligibility, and I think the best, I guess, product for Origin is essentially a month off so that you're not just playing 7 days after each other. A month off club footy, and then there's a round robin with all international teams. Anyone that doesn't qualify, because that way, if you're Samoan, Tongan, if you have a Tongan team that you can play for, you get to choose to play for them. And then eligibility goes out the window because you've got the players that want to play for Australia that are playing for New South Wales and Queensland. And then you've got the players that Samoa or Tonga, PNG, Fiji, it's more important to them to play. You know what I mean? I just think it solves that issue as well.
I'd also have the NRLW in that period as well.
For sure. It would be like a Magic Month or something like that. I know we've got Magic Round, but Magic Month, I would, and then all the teams, all the players that don't qualify for Samoa, Tonga, because not only does it strengthen, make it a great month, but it also strengthens, it gives the Samoan, Tongan, the Polynesians, and that gives them more opportunities to play for their country. They barely get to play for them. And so the players who don't qualify for any of that, for New South Wales, Queensland, and all the others, the nations, they go back and play New South Wales and Queensland Cup and rise that up a bit.
Jeez, my liver absolutely shit itself when you said Magic Month. Good God. Be unreal though, I agree, because it just doesn't work. Personally, I kind of enjoy this period because I like watching the young guys get an opportunity and come in, but it does dilute the entire competition. Matty's 100% right.
Yeah, I think cracker idea and have the Pacific Nations Tri tournament or whatever it is, some sort of setup there to elevate that up onto the stage and get more games in that because it's such a big part of rugby league. So I think that's a rip right here from Maddie, and I'd be all for it. And just on the resting players argument, the one coach this weekend that his Origin players didn't even name them was just like, no, you're having the weekend off. Wayne Bennett, arguably the greatest coach of all time. I know the Dolphins got done, but still, he didn't even consider it. Like just said, from the word go last Tuesday, didn't name his Origin players.
So I guess to be clear, we're not specifically having a crack at the Panthers because Cleary got injured. It's more a comp-wide issue that, again, I'm not sure where I land on it. I probably personally would rest players, but I'm not the one whose job's on the line if I don't make the 8. You know what I mean? Like, so it's very easy for me to go, I'd rest them. Meanwhile, if I had a family, I've got a contract, we're hanging around the 8, would I, you know what I mean? Would I risk that?
Can I ask, does Wayne have a history of resting Origin players?
I think he does.
He does?
I think initially he didn't.
Yeah.
But I think as he's gotten a bit older, I think he
because like obviously that game was Saturday 3 p.m. in New Zealand, so I wonder if that. But if he has a history,
I think he does. I think he does.
And it's definitely obviously player by player scenario. So Hudson Young played 30 minutes in Origin, 2-day backup, sweet, 30 minutes, he's fine, he's young, he's fit, good to go. I get that. Val Holmes, the Cowboys, they had to win that game against Melbourne. He's a centre, workload not as big, fit as, good to go, all good. But they're like big minute forwards in particular backing up, I think it's crazy.
Well, what's funny is I was getting messages, but I thought, they wouldn't name him to play. So the gym I go to down the road, as I'm walking in, a little van's driving out, and I see this like silhouette that is like exactly like Payne Haas, beard, big square haircut. Anyway, it was bloody. They were just leaving. Haas, Carrigan, and Reynolds, and maybe some young fellas were leaving the gym at like 8 o'clock in the morning of the day of the game. So I thought that they were, and I asked the dudes at they told me at the desk, like, what do they do? And they was, they worked out. I was like, they worked out the day of the game. So I thought they were getting pulled. But they must have done some kind of active recovery to get them ready to play. Because I personally, I mean, I know active recovery, that became a thing towards the end of my career, but usually on game day, the most you're doing is a walk. You just go for a walk together. But these boys actually must have done something in the gym.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
I was going to get messages and say I think they might be scratched because like they must have gone up and done a big workout.
Who was it? Payne, Carrigan.
Payne. Well, this is what the reception does. I know Haas was definitely there because I saw his massive silhouette in the car because they were already past me driving. Haas, Carrigan, Reynolds. So maybe just active recovery or something.
There you go.
Okay, let's get into the chat. Cleary injured. Who do you put in?
I'm going Adam Reynolds.
Who's your 6?
I'm undecided on my 6, but I think if you're going to bring Latrell back in and play him at left centre, I would probably lean towards Cody Walker. But God, I feel sorry for Jarome Luai because I don't think he deserves to get dropped.
Timmy?
Nico Hynes is my 7.
Who's your 6?
I'm a bit torn on it as well between Cody and Jarome. I thought for as poor a performance it was from the Blues and losing that game, I thought Jarome Luai was really good. I thought he had a terrific game. I thought he created some terrific space for Stephen Crichton out wide, gave him ample opportunities. Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. So, I think it's hard by dropping Jarome Luai off the back of game 1, but Cody's been exceptional. You know, we know that a lot of the reason that Jarome and a few of these Penrith guys were picked were because of the Penrith connection. Well, Nathan Cleary is the Penrith connection. He goes, that just changes the dynamic of that entire side. So maybe Cody Walker comes in, but yeah, certainly Nico Hynes at 7.
It's such a unique situation that either Critter's going to be your left centre and Jerome's going to be your left side ball player, or Cody Walker and Latrell. I think you're better off just going all in on one.
Who's your 9 then?
Well, same argument, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you just go all in on Bunnies? Do you pick both of them? I personally don't think we can play Appy for 80 minutes again. I know it didn't go poorly, but we didn't get the very best out of Appy, which is, if I'm picking Appy, I want him to be at his crafty best. So do you pick both of them? I don't know where he's at, but I said last week, I would love to see Cam McInnes picked in this side. If you're looking for a guy that can start at hooker, then be used as a middle forward, whereas I'm not convinced if Cook or Appy, you can use, I don't think you can. Cook's probably the one that you could more so, but I still wouldn't want to do it.
What about Reece Robson?
Yeah, I wouldn't be against Reece Robson, but if you're going to pick Reece Robson, might as well pick Damien Cook, I think.
No, but Reece Robson can play that lock kind of role that Cam McInnes could.
Yeah.
Similar body shape to Cotter.
Similar. Yeah, I don't. I think I would, if I'm going to do that, I'd rather have Cam McInnes personally.
Okay.
The Cam McInnes is scheduled to be back in 2 weeks, so the timing might be a
he definitely
little
can't get
bit. Yeah.
selected.
We just don't have that. And Reece Robson is probably the closest guy to that, to be fair. But yeah, I don't know.
Mate, it is an absolute jigsaw puzzle. The craziest puzzle in my mind is who gets selected, because if you go all in on the Rabbitohs one, you could go as far as, if Murray is good to play, you put him at 13.
For the sake of this discussion, it's almost a blessing in disguise that Murray isn't available.
Exactly, because then
That adds another half an hour to the conversation.
And so, look, I personally think I can understand people thinking Reynolds, Walker, maybe Cook over Appy, I'm not sure. But Reynolds, Walker, I can totally get. You're going into game 2, you've got no preparation. You just need 2 blokes that have played in huge games together. Yes, they fell short in the grand final. I get all that, but it's still a bloody grand final. They had to play big games to get there. But what has changed in a week that Nico Hynes is not the next guy up? I personally would probably be going Nico at 7, Cody Walker at 6. They played All-Star Indigenous together. They played fantastic together. Nico won man of the match. Nico, in the first half at least, absolutely tore our right side of the shreds. I know that Broncos ended up winning. Broncos ended up winning. I just think the Dally M Player of the Year, if Cleary has injuries in the future or anything, he can be your half for the next 4 to 5 years. On top of that, if Hynes goes out and kills it, he can also be your half for the next whatever years. Reynolds, mate, I'd honestly, either way, and in number 6, I definitely would go Cody Walker. And it is purely because of that connection. I feel terrible for Jarome Luai. I don't think he was absolutely one of your best. There could be arguments to be made. Well, he led Samoa to a World Cup, so why are you just saying that he's just Cleary's? I guess the only reason he's there is because of Cleary. I get that argument, but me personally, I just think you want to have players in there that have kind of played together before, and I don't know Hynes, Luai, do they complement each other? I'm not sure. On form, he shouldn't get dropped. On form, because he doesn't. I know he's a polarising player. Off the field, he's an absolute legend. Trust me. At least the experiences I've had with him, super, super nice. But it's just that combination. It's seriously just that combination.
Yeah, well, if we're talking combinations, that's part of the reason why I'm going Adam Reynolds. Without a doubt.
I like the call, Kemp, here of, we need to win this game, but we also need to keep an eye on the future. And let's be realistic. It'd take something pretty damn special from the Blues in game 2 and 3. Let's say Cleary does miss game 3, for Cleary not to be the starting halfback game 1 next year, really. So if Nico does come in and kill it, he can be the halves combination with Nathan Cleary going forward and play 5'8". And I think that's the combo I wanted from game 1, ideally. So I think Nico's the play, and I just think you've got to give the bloke the chance.
Could you put Luai at 14? Because he has actually played a bit of 14. I actually think he could play 9 for a little bit, for 10 minutes or so. Bring him on, he's back up.
You could, but I think Birdo's a better 14, isn't he?
Birdo? So you reckon Birdo will get that 14 role?
I think game 1 showed we need someone with a lot of versatility to play 14, in my opinion.
So you think Birdo could play number 9 for 10 minutes or so?
It makes it hard now that Murray's out. Definitely. Yeah, it does.
I mean, it is just throwing your selections into a complete blender.
Again, from game 1, I had Damien Cook there because I think he can do the 80 easily enough, which would allow the Birdo play off the bench. Yeah. Yeah,
I had Cookie there game 1 too. Appy played solidly in game 1, so I feel bad for it's like it's so bizarre that these players in these key positions that were arguably your New South Wales best now having to have their positions questioned when you're just I feel bad for them.
Well, there's a really good chance we get to game 2 and Appy, Luai and Critter all miss selection.
Yeah, and it's purely on combinations, and it's a must-win decider. You have no time, you have no second chances. It's at Suncorp. Are you willing to risk the fact that they have barely played together in a decider? Man, I feel bad for Luai. He stands up in a game where everyone else struggled, and then all of a sudden he has to have this pressure. If Luai was more like loved by the fans, do you think that there would be as much pressure on him to get replaced by a guy like Coach?
I definitely think that people are looking at Luai as what they perceive him to be rather than his performance. 100%, without a doubt. I don't think there's any question mark there for me.
As harsh as it is on Luai if he gets dropped, if the reason he gets dropped is because to put Cody Walker in that in, that's also the reason he got picked in game one. So it's not like you can be. It's been the same consistent thinking the whole way through. So even though it is harsh.
But if you go, then you go even a step further than that, and you would say, well, maybe Reynolds is the guy because of combinations.
But then you look at combinations and going with this Penrith contingent the last couple of years. Well, that's served us well, hasn't it? We got done last year, and then we just got done in a game we should have iced in game one. So it's like, well, I don't know. Is the Penrith connection the right decision?
But it's hard, though, because like the Penrith guys are our best players, in my opinion.
And also, the last 5 series, you've won 3, lost 2, you know. And that's basically when the Penrith contingent have been there to a degree. Like, I know Luai came in a little bit later, but to a degree. Cleary has been there for the 5, the keep. When did Isaiah make his debut?
2020.
2020. So basically, the key contingent of Penrith players has been since 2020.
Was it 20? Oh, because it was at the end of the year, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. So there may be a stronger argument for the Penrith situations not working at the moment because you only won 1 series. Oh, I mean, 50-50. You've won 1, lost 1.
Lost 2, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're 23. Okay, so lost 2, won 1. But the one you won was a record margin. Jesus, a tough call. I will say something I wanted to talk about from last week, and we did discuss it to a degree, but I think that, and you know, Guru, I think you discussed it as well for a different point, but I think the 8 in a row or the Queensland dynasty has completely warped people's minds as to how even Origin is. Here's some stats on some players.
I know I'm damaged goods, but proceed.
Peter Sterling, Origin. He's an Origin legend, Peter Sterling. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah.
1 series win. Alfie Langer. Would you ever say Alfie Langer can't step up in big games? He lost 5 consecutive series. In 96 is a whitewash. Cleary is 3 series from 5 attempts. It's just like, it has warped people's minds. Origin, before that dynasty, was like tit for tat. Now, I know that there was periods where, you know, New South Wales won 3, and I get that. But if you go back before the dynasty, I think like the win rate was literally like, you know, whatever, 65 to 64 or whatever it was. It was super, super close over a long time. Can you get that up, please? What the amount of wins each state has had in total? Yeah. And don't include, obviously, before bloody, you know. Yeah. And so I just think that, like, people that are like, oh, you know, there's some people calling for Cleary to even be dropped. Some people even calling that Cleary, it's good that Cleary's injured. I just think that people have been completely warped about this idea that you should just go in and win 8 series, otherwise you're not dominant.
Calling for Cleary to be dropped is dribble.
That's so dumb.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Not sure if the last game included, but whatever. Queensland 68 wins. New South Wales 57 wins.
Okay, so take out 8 points.
Well, you know what? Take out the games. Let's go series. It's 26 to 16, so that means it would be 16 to 18 if you take out the 8.
Exactly, and that's my point. That's what Origin is like tit for tat. So if you're rolling in like Andrew Johns, 51% win rate, 5 series. When did Joey have his big moment? And we've spoken about it too. We still are waiting for Cleary to have his big Origin series. He was about 30 years old. When did Freddie have his big moment? 2004, when he was what? About 30 years old? Now, some people try to say, oh, well, Cam Munster, you know, he was 26 or so when he had his crazy moment. Well, you know, first of all, that's Cam Munster for one. And second of all, that's still around the age that Cleary is right now.
My talking about having the warp perspective, this is a slightly distant example, but also a really good one. So we just finished watching the Jargons Panthers game with my girlfriend, and after the game, I had Cleary as my Supercoach captain, so I was just in a shit mood. You know, still coming off the back of the game 1 loss, and she's like, "Oh, it's all right." And she goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, the Cleary injury." She goes, "Yeah, so what? That's bad for the." She's not a big footy fan. That's bad for the Blues and Origin, isn't it? I'm like, "Yeah, very bad for us." She goes, really though, like Queensland Royals probably going to win that game 1. And I just looked at her and went, I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, they sort of always win, don't they? And I had that exact argument with her. I just said, no. I'm like, you warped because of this 8 in a row, and everyone just thinks Queensland are gods. I'm like, actually, if you look overall, it's quite even. She's like, okay, no need to get angry.
It's the nicest ex-girlfriend you've ever had.
Yeah, we had a good run.
It will